Welcome to Unscripted with Russo. I'm your host, Ashley Russo, president and executive producer of The Peak TV. For our podcast, we decided to explore the people behind the narratives. I'll introduce decision makers and influencers who are winners in their field and find out the intimate story behind their rise to success. All right, welcome back. We're here, Unscripted with Ashley Russo. We're very excited to have you be a part of our podcast. We have an amazing guest today, someone that has been a mentor and a friend to me. I'm so honored to have her here, Elaine Pivinski from Franklin Hill Vineyards. Elaine, thanks for coming. It's great to have you. And of course, you know, part of this Unscripted podcast is that we drink wine and we eat cheese and crackers. Oh. And so you are the perfect guest for many reasons.
Wants me.
You bring the wine. So we're going to open this. You've got a little Sanderson. Now, what is Sanderson?
Sanderson is the grape of Pennsylvania, because when we started growing grapes 44 years ago, there was very few grapes you could grow, especially reds. California had that market, and these were all hybridized at Cornell University. And the reds were okay, but they weren't like, how do you do a Pinot Noir or how do you compare to a Shiraz when we don't really kind of grow those kind of grapes. So then Cornell came up with Sanderson, and it has a lot of Cabernet parents in it. What it is crossing of the seeds, and then they create a really great plant that could be winter hardy and have a lot of tastes to it.
Winter hardy, so like that's sort of the term,
Yes.
right? Because of course we're in Pennsylvania, it is winter,
Correct.
and you're up north a little bit.
Yes, I am.
All right, well let's give it a taste. Let's do a little
Okay.
cheers. We're gonna, smells lovely. It looks great. The bottles are beautiful.
Smell is, 50% of taste.
Did you know that? I did not know that.
Well, when you smell it,
I guess that's why when you're sick and you can't smell things,
you
can't
taste
taste
good. Well, because
that's delicious.
Because it tastes good, so you smell it, and you all of a sudden you tell your brain, I think I'm going to like this.
Right.
Again, if a wine is spoiled, which I've had one in my life, you'll taste like, okay.
And you know it's gone bad.
Yeah.
Well, you've brought your amazing wine that you've been growing, what are you now, 40 years, something
44.
like that? 44 years. So I want to learn a little bit about the history and how you got to this place, because you were not raised on a farm. You were not a vintner by trade, and many
Absolutely.
of the vintners you talk to, in California,
And
it's
got
many
to school.
generations, many years of schooling. It is a science, it is hard. But you did not take a traditional path. So
No, I
tell
didn't.
us a little bit, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Fair Lawn, New Jersey.
Okay.
And I always...
Another Jersey girl.
Another Jersey
girls always find each other somehow,
do
isn't
we?
that? Yeah.
Are you from Jersey
I
too?
am, yes.
Where?
From the Somerset County area, Basking Ridge.
All right,
Yeah.
and I'm Fair Lawn, Bergen County.
Okay.
And when I graduated, it was the 60s. So I always tell the 33 women that work for me that they owe me thank you every day, because in the 60s, there was no Planned Parenthood. So you got married early. Okay, because no one was lucky in the 60s. So we got married early, and I found a wonderful man in Upper Montclair. His father was an architect.
Oh, my mother grew up in Upper Montclair.
Oh my goodness.
So
We probably know. So
Probably.
we'll have to do the
I know.
address. So just to show you how we were, then 1969, we were already married, came Woodstock. And we went up to Woodstock in a Corvette. So that just shows you
Oh, my
how funny it
goodness.
was. So coming home, he said to me, I want to live on a commune. And my heart sunk. I was 19 years old, and I don't share well. I'm greedy, I'm possessive, I'm
and you knew this
controlling.
about yourself at 19.
Yeah,
okay,
right.
that's good.
I just knew I didn't want communal living, and I said, can we do it on our own? So we searched for about a year, looking all over, and this beautiful farm came available in Lower Mount Bethel Township. It was 50 acres, which sounded like I bought Colorado.
Right. Well, especially
50
when you're
acres,
from Jersey.
Jersey, you had a 100-foot lot.
That's a third of the state,
Right.
Yeah.
And we went there, and it was 1 mile long lane and a little 3-room cottage. We bought it, $50,000, but then we didn't know what to do with it. So through the early 70s, we wrote to Rutgers, we wrote to Penn State and said, now that we're farmers, what do we do? But Cornell came with the answer. They brought us up to Geneva, which is an experimental station in New York State, and they showed us grapevines growing. And I laughed. The days of your family, you probably drank wine, but our family, we didn't. And I could just remember in college when everyone drank too much Matus and you got sick to your stomach and all that stuff. So here I said grapevines, and they had these French-American hybrids that they thought would grow in Pennsylvania. That's all I had to hear. And I said, oh, you think they'll grow? Yeah, no one's growing them yet, but I think that will. By 1975 and 76, they had enough plants in the nursery. So we bought 2 acres worth. We cashed in the baptism, the christening, any money
you had
to get to $2,000 to buy all the grapevines. And we had a book in our hand and a neighbor with a tractor, and we put the first acre in, and then it grew. So then that was the beginning of the histories that we knew it would grow. So this is 1976. Cornell had enough plants for us. So by 1979, 1980, we were harvesting. But in the meantime, we wanted to learn how to make wine. So you know who the best winemakers are in Bethlehem? Bethlehem Steel executives. All these
They did it on the side, right?
Yes.
They had these fun little home
because their wives wouldn't let them leave their high jobs, paying jobs, but their passion was into winemaking. So I joined the American Wine Society, and I met some of the best men in the whole wide world that knew how to make wine. And I said, can you come aboard and help me? So they helped me for about 2 years. And after that, I knew what I was doing. So this is 79, by 1982, I opened my first harvest and my first winery, and we only made 3,000 gallons.
All right, so let me just stop you. 3,000 gallons, which sounds like a lot to me, but how many bottles does that equal?
Okay, 3,000 gallons times 5. So that would be 15,000 gallons. Okay, so 3,000 gallons times 5. So that would be 15,000 bottles, and then you divide that by 12. Because there's 12 bottles to a case.
Okay.
So there's the math.
Yes, all right. So that's what I need to know. So if every 1,000 gallons, you multiply it by 5, and that's how many bottles you get. So 1,000 gallons, 5,000. Okay. All right, good.
Yeah.
So whenever I hear that gallon amount, I have no idea what that means. That still sounds like a lot of wine, but I guess when you're farming and you're looking to mass produce.
The laws now allow you to go up to 100,000 gallons by laws, and that's considered a small farm. And so we were at 3, and it is a good place to learn because I had a lot of mentors that helped us from
Now, do you have any of those first bottles?
Probably, but it does. I'm not that. I don't
You
say.
don't really
if I could make the money, I sold it.
All right, a true entrepreneur. Just
Right,
make it and sell it.
So right, yeah.
This is what I'd love to know: is you have this incredible journey, and clearly a curiosity and a can-do attitude. Where does that come from? What was your family like? You have brothers, sisters. What did your parents do?
Yeah,
what was your
my
childhood
mother stayed
like?
home.
Okay.
Of course, my dad was just great. We're Polish heritage. We didn't have a lot, but we had everything. Like most people say, we didn't really have a lot. Like when I became 17, I shared a car with my mother. We didn't give kids cars.
Right.
You know what I mean? So little things like that. But I love to be physical. And I always like to get my hands into doing things like I would mow the lawn rather than my brother. You know what I mean? I would do the gardening and all that. And I'm just a good worker. It's just part of my DNA. And I'm a risk taker because I could always fall back on my parents. Even coming into Pennsylvania, what if we didn't succeed at this farm? What would you do? And you had to sell it. I'd always go back and live with my parents. I think everyone needs something to fall back on, and we always had that. And today, all my risk-taking has really grown. And what was your original question?
No, I just wanted to know a little bit about your family and your upbringing.
Yeah,
What you told me, and you have brothers.
My father was an engineer.
Okay.
World War II vet, wonderful, wonderful man. We lost my mother early in life. I was in my 20s when I lost my mom. So that's different too.
Such a difficult,
and my sister too.
That's still such a formative time.
Yeah, in my 20s, and my sister was only 21. And my mother was like just everything to us. She was really a neat person. And she guided us to our personalities. And to lose a mother was really hard. My father tried so hard. You know, I can remember going for wedding gowns, and he'd sit in the thing, and we'll come out and look. Oh, you look very pretty, but it's not like a mother.
Not the same, yeah. That's it. But it's interesting how that experience, I would think, would have an influence over what you did next and the way you approached life next.
Right,
I mean,
because I had to take care of myself.
Yeah.
You didn't have that mother to call at night and listen to you.
You talk about being a risk taker. When did you first kind of realize that that was something that was in your DNA? I mean, were you 7? Were you 15? Were you 25? Like, when did you realize you were willing to kind of go out there on a limb and take a risk. And did it apply to small things in your life?
Very much so.
Okay.
Little things. I went to LIU out on the island. You're talking the mid-60s. And I had to take a train.
Coast?
What?
Was CW Coast?
Yes, but it was the Southampton.
Okay.
Heaven forbid I had to go to the Southampton. And I would take the train there, and I was a young girl, and I always knew I could find my way. I think I always had a personality that was pleasing, or I could ask the right questions. So I think it was just part of that as a young girl traveling, just even to college, which was amazing. Getting married young, all of a sudden you were a wife at 19 years old. A lot of girls don't want to be wives at 19 years old today.
A lot of girls don't want to be wives at 29 years
right.
old today.
And then I was a mother at 21. Think about that.
That'll grow you up very quickly.
Yeah. So, you're a mother at 21, and my father-in-law had built Clara Moss Hospital in Bellevue. So he had his first granddaughter there. It was kind of neat. But we were just a bunch of hippies then, and
it's interesting that you went to Woodstock. First of all, let's just pause and say, how cool is that?
Very cool.
Yes, isn't it neat that you can say that? What was that experience like?
Well,
is it everything we think it was?
Well, I have to be honest. I never got there.
Okay.
We got on the New York Thruway. All the traffickers were backed up, and then you heard the stories, and all that. So we stayed in a little town, not very, very close, and the people opened their arms for us, and we camped out on their yard. And I could remember waking up.
You had your own personal Woodstock.
Yeah. And then I can remember someone getting married, and we all attended the wedding. And then I thought, probably they woke up in the morning and said, what did I do last night? So I saw that culture of love and kindness. We were against the war in Vietnam at that time, so everyone was starting to get drafted. So we felt we connected ourselves or aligned ourselves with more peace-loving, more natural foods, then started the organic, then started vegetarian, well, that was the beginning.
That was the beginning of it. And you seem to have carried a lot of those same, I guess, principles on into your life now. And what do you think were the major influencers at that time that you've carried with you, that you've continued to hold on to?
I think it started when you just mentioned my mother and father. They were extremely kind, very, very nice. They didn't gossip about people. They believed in helping before themselves. And also, too, you're raised Catholic, so you're kind of taught, to how to be nice and obedient and all that. But I think those were the early beginnings, and that's where I am today. So fast forward, the marriage didn't make it after 5 years. And he went, I always say, with the boys in the band, and I stayed with the kids. But
now you have how many kids?
Just two.
2 kids and a 50-acre farm.
Yeah, and no husband.
And no husband.
Right.
So what's the plan?
Yeah, right. That was it. And I think the most important thing I want to share with you, and I also share it with the girls, I could remember, as it happened yesterday, signing the mortgage. And this is back in 1975. And the bank said to me, I just started to say my name, and he said, we don't need your name on the mortgage because you don't make enough money. I didn't make any money. I was a wife and a mother. And I accepted that, and I go, okay, I guess they don't put wives on it. My dad had to co-sign my credit card because because I didn't have credit. And then when my children's father and I went our separate ways, the mortgage was in his name. And the best thing I did is and where did I get this skill? And I always teach other women, it's intuitiveness inside. Keep kind, keep focused. But I would go to the teller, because in those days you didn't send your mortgage in email, or you didn't send it from a bank account, or you very rarely mailed it. You went to the bank and paid your mortgage in the 70s. So I went in and I said, who is the man who was going to approve my mortgages? And they'd introduce me to him, and I'd go in the back every 30 days, and I said, hi, I'm Elaine Pivinski. Do you remember me? I'm paying this mortgage. You see my name's not on it, right? It went on and on and on. It went on for 9 years because we couldn't settle on the property. And why would he? Because I was paying for the mortgage.
Right, you were paying for it, keeping it running, and it was, sure.
And then finally I gave up. I went to the bank and I said, I can't do this anymore. I want to leave. Or would you give me a mortgage? And he said, how much do you need? And in those days, I took the mortgage at 16% interest. And now today, we're just crying over.
Yeah, so you're at what, early 80s?
Yeah.
People forget.
Mid-80s, right.
We're coming off the gas shortage.
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
And I did it.
I think this is so important to share because we talk about this concept of the women who came before us, right? And now I find myself in my 40s, and I'm suddenly becoming a woman who came before someone, right? And that there's that multi-generational, I think of my grandmother, my mother, and it's just so poignant to say like what you really went through. I mean, I would never, it would never dawn on me, and only because of your generation, my mother, yourself, going through what you went through. Going every month, paying the mortgage, accepting that your name wasn't on there, but then fighting for it when it was time.
Yeah.
So these are such,
it's so wonderful.
Yeah,
and
it's great.
And I'm probably one of the happiest feminists you'll meet because I see how far I've come.
Yeah.
And so how much I've gained. And breaking that glass ceiling, which was another hard thing, being a woman in an industry of all men, being the first female winemaker of the state of Pennsylvania, being the first female owner of a farm. I remember Farm Credit gave me a loan and said, you know, you're the first woman sole proprietor that got a loan from us.
When you think about yourself doing these things as a woman, did that come into play? Was it for you, was there any kind of hurdle saying, well, I'm a woman, so this may not work? Or did you just say, I'm a person who wants to accomplish X and I'm going to go for it? I mean, how did it play?
In the middle. I never pushed my way through anything. And I actually used my femininity to my success. In other words, if I had to replace a part on a machine and I didn't know how to do it, I'd call up and I'd say who I was. And I said, can you help me? Obviously, you know this is not familiar to me. Can you walk me through it? Sure. What do you need? Well, this part goes, and I got so much help that way by treating it with honey rather than being defiant and being angry. Never was I angry. I was absolutely angry a little bit, of course, when my children's father left me.
Yeah, well, how could you
obviously,
not be?
But and also through those 9 years of paying the mortgage, I kept saying to myself, okay, how can I get through this without being angry? Because all the women I met that were going through divorces, this is mine, I belong, I'm raising the children, I need more money, and it was always I. And I would say to myself, I created those children too, and they're mine, and I'll take care of them. And I was a caretaker, and I try to teach that to everyone. I look at my 1802 farmhouse, and I said, how many women took care of this house? And you think back.
And raised their families there.
And raised their family there. And I'm a caretaker. And I said that to God right away. I said, just allow me to be a caretaker, put a roof over my head, and I'll take care of it for the next generation that's going to sweep the floors and wash the windows like someone did in 1802. When you get out fear and anger and you do acceptance, you succeed.
That's a beautiful message. Fear and anger is so much, you hold on to things
Oh,
you don't
God.
need to, and it drives people in funny ways.
Absolutely.
Destructive ways, really.
Yeah.
So you've built this amazing business. You've come through this difficult time. You've now hold the mortgage. We're in the mid-80s.
Yes.
You've got your kids. They're growing up. What happens next? How are you building this business?
Well, it was starting extensions of premise, meaning getting out off the farm because I'm so rural. So my first move was in the Poconos in Strasbourg. And that was so hot, like 84, 85. Then the crossings came, that fell down. And then Jeffrey Parks came to me in 1983 looking for a winery to do this little festival they called Music Fest.
Oh my gosh,
yeah,
really?
So that was kind. So he
I didn't know that.
I think his child was like 5 years old, and Jeffrey came to me and he said, "You're the first and only winery. We're going to have a festival. Maybe 100 people come, maybe 1,000. I don't know."
Imagine.
And so by 1984, I prepared for it. He said, "I'll take 4 wines." We even custom labeled First Wines of Music Fest, 1984. We have that we do have.
Wow, that's neat.
And we were there, and that was the answer in 1985. And by this time, my children's father had left. So by 1986, I was doing it again, and then I got fearful. I didn't know if I was going to lose my farm. You know,
Sure.
We were going through a terrible time, so I spoke very nicely to Jeffrey. I said, "Could you just give me a little bit of a break? I'm going through some issues. I don't know if I'll be here next year, and I don't want to not fulfill my contract with you." And then when I ran a store in Easton, in 1986, I went into the Palmer Park Mall. That's how you do it. You go little spots of where you think people will shop conveniently.
What did you find to be the biggest challenge in that growth time? I mean, outside of the finances. Like, how am I going to
Because
make
everyone has
that's
that, right,
everybody.
right.
What did you find, whether was it staffing, was it growth production, was it management of work and home life? I mean, what was the most difficult thing?
I always say this to my daughter, too, because you have to make a choice as a woman, especially a single woman. You cannot be a mother and a father. You had to make it, and I didn't know this until 5 years ago. I chose to be the father. And what I mean by that is I was always there for the children when they came home, but I didn't have enough money for the staff. If someone came through the door and bought a $4 bottle of wine, I had $4 in my name. I didn't have a second income coming in. I didn't have a significant other. I didn't have a husband or anything, so I was it. And you're living on a 50-acre, this huge farm with
a driveway that's a mile long, literally,
and not
right?
a good car,
No.
and not a good car. And I said to the children, I said, their sports was compromised because how was I going to get them at 3:30? How was I going to pick them up at 6 o'clock? And no one would carpool with me, so we had to make choices as to what sport we will be into. And today, we're like helicopter parents.
Right.
We're
How can we accommodate
with
you?
And oh, you forgot your lunch. I'll be right there.
Right.
And I forgot my hockey stick. I'll be right there. So I think that part was the hardest because of staffing. But what I did learn is that I love being a breadwinner. But my children never went without anything. They went to college. They had cars. I could remember my children just wanting Jordache jeans, and they wanted the mother to. In those days, we ironed the seam on the Jordache jeans. And Mommy, you're not ironing the seams. And Mommy, there's not enough food in the refrigerator and a home cooked meal. But and then they wanted a Volvo in 1984. And they said, Mom, our cars are so ugly. Could we have a Volvo? And I came home with a John Deere tractor. Well, I could see this girl, this boy in 6th grade or 7th grade, and then my daughter a sophomore in high school said, you bought what? I said, I bought a John Deere tractor because I know it'll make us money where a Volvo won't. And then today I drive a Tesla. So tell me.
See, it worked out.
I didn't know that.
I'd be curious to know, and I've had the pleasure of meeting your son Adam several times. I have not met your daughter, but I would certainly love to.
Oh, she's
might have to go to Florida to do it. It sounds like, but I'll force myself.
Yes.
What do they say now about those lessons that you learned?
Well,
that they learned.
The thing that they both say how hard it was on them. They said it was very hard. Like Jennifer said, I didn't really know how to clean a house in 7th grade, but I learned how do you scrub a toilet? I mean,
Right.
What is the product you use? Because in those days they hardly had anything. It's
Clorox.
called Comet or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I think they saw how I struggled, but I tried my best. My children gave me not 1 ounce of problems. I mean, other than just normal pain in the neck.
But not the big stuff you hear about.
Not the big stuff.
Do you
They had
think that
no
they
anxiety.
knew that they knew what you were going through? Like they understood, and you were you transparent with them about realities of life and money and struggles?
I think they just saw it because they saw me working. And I could remember me making sure they were up at the house and they're starting to do homework, and I said, I'll be down. And the winery would be maybe, I don't know, 100 yards away. And then I'd be racking a tank, and all of a sudden the filter would get clogged. I'd redo it. Before I knew it, an hour and a half is gone. And then I'd look up and the lights are on. I could see where they're doing their homework. And then I'd run up and I said, I'm so sorry, I had a problem down the winery. What do you need? And all that stuff. And they said, no, Mom, we got it.
And by the way, let's remind people, we weren't texting each other every 10 seconds. You
There
had to
was
figure
no
it
phone,
out.
right, yeah, right.
Your kids are probably very resourceful. I mean, imagine that they're
Very.
hardworking and that they're resourceful.
They both are.
Did you have guilt as a mother?
All the time.
I know.
Still do.
See, I know, me
Still
too.
do,
It's
so
such a
don't worry.
terrible thing,
Look
isn't
at me,
it?
I have tears a little bit thinking
it's tough.
of what I put
It's
them
tough.
through.
I have to say, I was home with my kids, and when I went back to work, I spent about 2 years trying to be everything, and I was failing miserably.
And you can't.
You
know
cannot. It's exhausting, but you still feel guilt. You still feel like you want to do for, and I know it's not really the right thing. I know they really do need to figure it out for themselves.
It's your love
But
of your children.
It is.
It really is.
Inexplicable.
There's this love of children that some of us have it, and some of us are. I'm a better worker rather than a
me
mother.
too.
So, and that's
Me
you
too.
have meet
And you
all
feel
those
almost
different
feel
kind of
badly,
women.
like because you're not
I
sure
love
you're
working.
supposed to feel that way, right?
I tried one day to do like make the beds, mop the floor, wash the sink. Ooh, this is boring.
Yeah,
You
bake a
know?
pie.
Yeah. Oh, I'll have dinner. I'll go grocery shopping. I go, oh gosh, there's got to be more to life than this. So
I saw a great movie about motherhood, and it spoke to this, and she basically said, the woman in it spoke to the mother, said something like, you're such a great mother to your children because you're a constant. You're there every day. You're there for them. She said, no, I'm not, because I'm not the kind of mom that bakes the cupcakes. And I so related to that, because I thought, oh, I'm not that mom. And I always felt badly that I wasn't the mom who baked the cupcakes. But I could raise money for the school.
Yes, exactly.
Right? Like that was my skill. So.
And you had a relationship with your father,
yes.
with your husband rather, their
yes.
father. And that's the difference. In the 60s, and fathers were not part of the game. They were breadwinners, especially in the 50s. They did the breadwinners and mothers stayed home. Then the transition, I think, of birth control, controlling family sizes, women got back in the workplace. That's where it all changed.
It all started changing.
And we thought we wanted to be both, and you just can't do it, and you won't be good at anything. So what we have to do is learn how to bury our guilt, and I think it's something we just have to live with.
Forgive ourselves a little bit too.
Yeah, we do.
Like allow ourselves a little.
Yeah,
me too.
Very hard on myself.
I am too. Speaking of women in the workforce, you have a very unique workforce at Franklin Hill.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about the workforce you built and really where it started. You employ 33 women, I believe?
33 women.
33 women. That's amazing.
It started when I was on my own and I was able to...
I'm going to keep sipping this delicious
I
wine.
was on my own and I started and I got the mortgage and it was in my name. And I always call it my fabulous five. When I needed workers, this is when I was alone, like in the late 70s, early 80s, where was I going to get them? So as I was taking my children out to the school bus, which was 1 mile away, and sometimes they missed it, and I'd be trying to catch the bus and, forget it, 35 miles round trip, to get to the schools. I saw the mothers that went back in their house. I go, oh. And I'd see them at a bus stop, and I'd stare at them and see which ones went in or which ones had cars and they were going on to work. I knocked on their doors, and I introduced myself, and I said, do you have a few hours today? I'm your neighbor. I have a winery. And you could come in right now, leave at 2 o'clock so you could prepare dinner. Or if you have to leave and get your children, we called it the Fabulous Five. I
love every single thing about this. Now, of course, having done some things with you in the past, I know this piece, and I really want to share it with our listeners and our viewers, because you had this Fabulous Five. But you saw women that you thought maybe were looking for an outlet or had a skill set that they weren't maybe utilizing. And you were family friendly way before that was a thing.
Way before that.
Yeah.
And we put the children first. And everyone was allowed to leave at 2:30 or 3 o'clock whenever their children, if your children were sick, you stayed home with them. And all of a sudden I noticed the worth of women, though. They were just as strong. They were just technical. Matter of fact, Bonnie Peischer, who's still with me on 38 years, she would be so technical. She loved putting things apart, taking apart. And then if she really messed up, her husband would come and put it back together for us. She loved that part of her life, and I let her go. And I loved the tedious, monotonous, boring work of working in a vineyard. Over and over, 5,000 vines, doing the same thing over and over again. Sometimes I'd go, oh, I don't want to do another vine. Same thing over. Women are very good, and because we're nurturers, we take care. We know that our jobs are repetitive, and that's what working in a vineyard is. Repetitive, boring, monotonous work. We're good at it.
And those vines really require love and care. I mean, they are a living, breathing organism.
You prune them wrong, you don't get a vintage. And you prune, it takes balance. And that also, too, you're outside all day long talking to God, too. Talking all your questions to Him, you're yelling out loud. I always say by the time I come out of the vineyard, the answers are there, because I listened. Because most women in our busy world today, we don't listen. We say
we don't make the time.
No,
I mean, part of the beauty of being in nature for what you do is it takes you out a little bit of the kind of craziness of technology and the fast-moving world, and you have that opportunity to kind of be one with nature.
Absolutely.
And take a breath.
And you're in the vine. And if you have any spiritual holiness of, I am the trunk, you are the vine, the branches, it's all very spiritual as well. And it's a beautiful plant. And this plant gives us wine. It's the best fermented beverage on this planet, meaning the white wines are great to calm your nerves. The red wines are good for your cardiovascular. And it's a nice social beverage.
You don't have to convince me.
Okay.
I'm a wine drinker, and I love this Chamberson. It's so good.
Isn't
You
it
also brought
delicious?
other treats with you today. We should mention that you've got a beautiful store on Main Street in Bethlehem.
Yes, I do.
You do. It's a lovely, lovely place to visit, and you've got some cool stuff there. We've got a roasted pineapple and habanero finishing
sell
sauce that
there.
works. It goes probably great on like a
Do
pork
you know we've
loin
been in
or
Bethlehem
something.
for 21 years?
It's
And when I had a little store in Easton, Lou Pector, who owned that building, he was going to convert the Orz's building. There was talk, should we implode it or should we make it into retail? And they made it into retail. And I laughed. I got an incredible award with the Chamber last year about being a person that has supported both sides of downtown Bethlehem. And I was put in the basement because they didn't think I would draw people. And I started to laugh. 21 years later, the number one who signed on was Bethlehem Brewer. Second one, Aardvark Shoes, Elaine Pivinski, and we're still
You're
the
all
only
there.
three.
All the others have changed, but they've
everyone
all been
changed.
there.
And I always said, Lou, thank you for moving me upstairs because now they think I'm worth it. And then that's also Music Fest. I knew I'd love that city. I wanted to be a part of it. And then when Adam came to me in 2013 to say, Mom, just when I thought I could retire, I want to be the first distillery. And
so this is your son, Adam.
Yeah, Adam.
He wanted to be the first distillery.
Because the laws were changing in 2013. I bought him a T-shirt that said, Prohibition is over, thinking that'll do it. And then he goes, no. He gave me a ticket to Louisiana, and over $100,000 later, we came home with a still. He promised me, if we don't buy it today, we'll never be in that market.
And now look at you, Social Still, south side of Bethlehem.
Bethlehem.
It's a
And
beautiful,
look how it
amazing
grows.
converted bank.
South
I
side.
remember it opening and you having a few drinks and a couple appetizers.
That's it.
Now it's a full
Nothing.
dinner menu. Full,
Can't get
You can't get in. It's
Yeah.
incredible.
Now we opened up lunch to try
Right.
to do that. And then the flats next door moved into us, the big apartment buildings that are great. Arts Quest is so good to us. We definitely are vendors as well as supporters of Arts Quest.
Well, you guys have been good to the community. Before I let you go, I do want to ask you a few questions.
Okay.
So first, let's start with what is the best lesson that you have ever learned?
What is the best lesson? Don't spend more than you can afford.
Excellent.
Like, don't take huge loans
Yep.
out.
Excellent, excellent lesson. All right. What is your favorite food?
What is my favorite food? Bread.
Bread. Oh, who doesn't love
I
bread?
know.
And they keep telling us to give it up.
I love
All right.
bread.
Of all the wines you make, what is your favorite?
I always say the one that's not selling. Because you want to
That's
move
the one
it.
you want to
Yeah,
promote.
Yeah,
Okay.
right. But my favorite go-to is White Jade now, named after my granddaughter Jadelyn. And we tried Chardonnay. We got all the medals with the Chardonnay, and yet it wasn't dry enough for the real Chardonnay drinkers. They wanted that California heavy oak, and East Coast isn't that intense. So it just didn't sell. So we blended it with Vidal with slight French oak on it, and that's my favorite.
That's great. And I love the names that you
Yeah.
always come up
White
with after.
Jade, yeah.
Wonderful family. All right. What if you could invite 3 people to have dinner with you, who would the 3 people be?
Gloria Steinem.
Good one.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I think that I'd love to just pick her brain. Brene Brown.
Okay.
I'd love Brene Brown. Eat with me. Barack Obama.
Excellent. Wow, that's a good dinner table.
Yeah.
That's a really good dinner
Yeah.
table. If you're not drinking your wine, what is your favorite wine? Are you allowed to say that?
Yeah, of course
Okay.
I am. I have winery palate. That means I just love my wines. I've tasted other wines to see how I compare. Probably a Sauvignon Blanc of some sort,
Okay.
a Pinot Gris, because I want to try to like it because I think it's comparable to my White Jade. But I'm also, now that Adam owns Social Still, I'm really breaking into the vodkas.
Okay.
And
And now I'm breaking into the bourbons. His stuff
Did you
is
see
good.
Freak Show? Oh my
Yeah,
goodness.
I just gave it as a gift, I'll have you know.
Oh,
It's
and
awesome.
he just
And the
came out-
bottling and the labeling,
label.
it's so good. It's
he's
beautiful.
brilliant though. He came out with Sasquatch, which is his whiskey with vanilla. And you have to understand, we have a wonderful chef at Social Still. So between Adam's marketing and his creativeness and a wonderful chef, you could come up with the best flavors and taste. That's why we do so well in wines, because my head winemaker has the best palate of taste. What tastes good, what doesn't. And with that collaboration, he came up with that. And then we went to Jamaica, and we know this. If anyone's been there, the White Witch, you know, the witch down there, and he came out with an incredible rum that's falling. We made 100.
I haven't tried the rum, so now I know what I have to try.
We did 100 cases to get us through to the spring, and the first day we sold 30.
Oh my gosh.
I know.
Wow. Well,
Yeah,
it's a
so
good
now
problem to have.
Yeah,
You know
it
what
is.
to do.
It is. But whiskey, different wine. Wine I could make in 3 months, and whiskey sometimes takes 2 years.
Yeah,
So
it's a
yeah,
slow
production.
Let me ask you this: if you were not doing what you're doing now, which is probably hard to imagine after 45 years in this business, what would you be doing?
Well, my daughter's in cannabis. Okay, so I have the Holy Trinity. I have whiskey, wine, and cannabis now.
I want to get invited to your farm.
So actually, I am preparing for when I'm not into this and doing something with Joe. I have a passion for the farmers of Pennsylvania and the farmers everywhere. And I also have a passion for health. At my age, every time something goes wrong with you, doctors just give us pills for everything. You know, a pill for that, a pill for your leaky gut, a pill for anxiety, fibromyalgia, lower back pain, and all that. And it's pills. And I did a lot of research, and I aligned myself, actually my daughter did, and we're in the CBD business. But taking it one step further, I joined the Pennsylvania Council of Hemp Growers.
Interesting.
And I've been working with Governor Wolf, and the Farm Bill of 2018 will probably be passed before the end of the year. They were waiting for the midterms to go, and in that is a bill to take CBD, which is hemp, off the controlled list. I mean, it's up there with heroin.
Right.
You know,
Right.
We're talking hemp. And with hemp, we can do building materials, insulation, clothing. All our World War II, I and II uniforms are made from hemp. Farmers paid their taxes with hemp, but it was taken away from us in the 30s. And I truly believe our cannabidiol system, which exists, CBD1 is in your brain, CB2 is in your gut, needs to be fed. And it has
And also,
to be
it sounds
fed.
like there's a huge business behind it that would allow
Huge.
farmers
Yes.
and growers and naturalists and clothing makers to have
this.
a whole.
And guess where it's going to be? The research center is in Center Valley. We have plans already, the minute this goes, that our governor is giving us great money. And we can produce a plastic water, anything you see in plastic can be made of hemp. Picture every plastic bottle in 58 days, it goes back to dirt. And it doesn't fill our landfills, our waterways, our oceans. You know, plastic bills, when you run like a 5K,
Absolutely.
the garbage is just
Everywhere,
overflowing.
yeah.
Can you imagine it be just in 58
That's
days?
incredible.
So I think that is exciting, and I encourage every person my age. We tend to just think we need to retire and we die because there's no purpose in our life.
Right.
And to get into the hemp industry, it's exciting. My land is basically in vineyards. And what I wanted to help the other farmers that are starving in the Lehigh Valley, in Berks County, or they need a new product because most of the tariffs are hurting the soybeans. Their milk bill is the same that they got 10 years ago, but they need someone to step out of their comfort zone. And I'm always good at stepping out
I
of my
can
comfort
tell,
zone.
for sure.
Yeah.
It's
Okay,
incredible.
what if you're talking hemp. So we have companies coming to us and say, I need 3,500 acres of hemp grown because I want to make it into a tool. In Europe, BMWs, all the dashboards now are made of hemp. It's stronger than steel. And it's just amazing, this new product. And I would like to see people, a year ago or 2 years ago, I'd never say cannabis because people say, oh, she's smoking marijuana.
Right.
Yeah,
But it's such a different
it's
game
so
now.
in right now.
And I love that you continue to be innovative. You continue to inspire.
Yeah.
There's always the next thing.
Yeah.
And
I bet you
hope
didn't
that's
expect
a message.
that, did you?
No, but I think that's the message, Elaine. I mean, one of the things that's such a joy to know you is you inspire everyone around you, and you lead by example. And so we're
thank
so
you.
blessed to have you in
Oh
this
my
Lehigh
God.
Valley, and
I'm
I'm
gonna
so
cry.
well. It's true. It really is true. And I have to say, I will speak for my generation. Thank you. Thank you for trailblazing. Thank you for leading the way. And thank you for showing us what we could do. I hope that I am carrying the torch. I'm doing my best.
Yes, you
Doing
are
my
by
best. And
spreading
I'm
the
gonna,
word.
yes, and just,
It's
I'm going to
all
forgive myself a
education.
little more as a mom today. I'm going to
know.
hopefully inspire some of my team today because they're the next generation. And we're just lucky to know you.
Support the women, and I think what helped me too, look at me, I get a little tearful when you give me a compliment, is the midterm election. So many women joined in.
I know, and you had your amazing scarf.
Yeah, but women wouldn't even do this but they're jumping in, and they're the ones I admire because I'm too selfish to do that.
Well, we'll leave it with that.
But
Elaine.
right. I
Thank
just say thank women and teach your children well, because
be
I
kind.
did.
And be kind.
Yes.
You've had kind parents, you've been a kind
Oh,
mother, a kind
so
employer,
kind.
and kind to our community. So
Yeah.
we're very lucky to have you here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Elaine
Give me a hug.
Pivinski. Yes.
Mwah.
Franklin Hill Vineyards, Social Still. They are wonderful businesses to support in our community. We hope you've been inspired. You've been listening to Unscripted with Ashley Russo. Until next time. Thanks, everybody.